Yesterday, I forgot to buy his favorite coffee. Spent the night in Honda Civic at -5 degrees Celsius. The neighbors are already used to seeing me by the car. Maybe I really deserve this for my forgetfulness? I keep telling myself this is normal. That maybe other wives go through this too. The cold leather seats of my car have become more familiar than my own bed some nights. My fingers went numb around 2 a.m. yesterday, but I just kept flexing them, trying to stay warm under that thin emergency blanket I keep in the trunk now. It started small, maybe 2 years ago. I'd mess up dinner, burn the edges of his steak, or forget to pick up his dry cleaning, and he'd get this look. Not angry exactly, just disappointed. Like I was this constant source of letdown in his life. The first time he told me to go sit in the garage for a few hours to think about what I'd done, I actually laughed. I thought he was joking, but he wasn't joking. He stood there, arms crossed, waiting for me to move. The garage was freezing that October evening, and I sat on that metal folding chair for 3 hours, staring at paint cans and garden tools, wondering what the heck just happened to my life. Now it's routine. I forget to replace the milk, I'm out there. I accidentally shrink his favorite shirt in the wash, I'm sleeping in the Honda. Last month I spent an entire weekend locked out of the house because I couldn't remember if he said he wanted Chinese or Italian food for Friday night. I guessed wrong. The neighbors definitely know something's up. The woman next door, she gives me these looks when she's getting her mail. Not judgmental exactly, more like she's trying to solve a puzzle. Yesterday morning when I was brushing my teeth using the garden hose because I wasn't allowed back inside yet, she waved at me through her kitchen window. I waved back like everything was perfectly normal. My sister keeps asking why I look tired all the time. I tell her I've been having trouble sleeping, which isn't technically a lie. It's hard to sleep when you're wondering if tonight's the night you'll say the wrong thing or forget something important. I've started keeping lists for everything. Grocery lists, errand lists, lists of things not to mention around him. My purse is full of crumpled papers with my own handwriting reminding me to be better. The worst part isn't even the cold or the hunger or the way my back aches from sleeping curled up in the driver's seat. It's how I've started to believe he might be right. Maybe I am just incredibly forgetful and inconsiderate. Maybe normal people don't mess up as much as I do. When I forgot his coffee yesterday, I actually felt this wave of shame before he even got home. I stood there staring at the regular coffee I'd bought instead, knowing I'd screwed up again. Update. Something weird happened today that's making me question everything even more. I was at the grocery store, making sure to get the right coffee this time, when I ran into my old coworker from the office job I had before we got married. She was so excited to see me, asking how married life was treating me, and I found myself automatically saying everything was great. But then she mentioned how organized and detail-oriented I used to be at work. How I never missed deadlines, never forgot important meetings, how everyone used to joke that I had the best memory in the department. I just stood there holding that bag of coffee, realizing I hadn't thought about that version of myself in years. I used to be the person people came to when they couldn't remember something. I had birthday reminders set for everyone in the office. I never once forgot to submit my timesheet or missed a client call. But somehow in the past few years, I've become this scattered, forgetful person who can't even remember to buy the right kind of coffee. Walking back to my car, I started thinking about when this all really began. The forgetting, the mistakes, the feeling like I couldn't do anything right. And I realized it coincided almost exactly with when the garage punishments started. Before that, sure, I'd occasionally mess up like anyone else, but nothing like this constant stream of errors that seemed to define my existence now. I spent last night in the house, thankfully, because I got the coffee right. But I barely slept anyway, just lying there thinking about who I used to be versus who I am now. There's this voice in my head that keeps suggesting maybe the reason I mess up so much is because I'm constantly walking on eggshells, constantly anxious about the next mistake, constantly tired from sleeping in cars and garages. But then another voice, the louder one, tells me I'm just making excuses. That plenty of people manage to function under pressure without becoming forgetful disasters. That if I just tried harder, paid more attention, cared more about not disappointing him, none of this would happen. Update 2. I think I'm losing my mind, but something happened that I can't stop thinking about. Yesterday, I was cleaning out my old purse and found my work ID from 3 years ago. The photo made me stop dead in my tracks. I looked so different. Not just younger, but there was something in my eyes that I don't see in the mirror anymore. I looked confident, alert, like someone who had her life together. I've been carrying that ID around all day, comparing that person to who I am now. The woman in the photo never would have forgotten coffee. She certainly never would have accepted sleeping in a car as punishment for forgetting coffee. But she also never loved someone enough to want to be better for them, right? That's what I keep telling myself. Except I found something else in that purse. A little notebook where I used to write down random thoughts and observations. I flipped through it, and there's an entry from about 4 years ago where I wrote about meeting him. How charming he was, how he made me feel special, how he said he'd never met anyone so organized and put together. He used to praise those exact qualities that he now punishes me for lacking. The entry right after that one is about him suggesting I didn't need to work so hard, that he could take care of me, that maybe I was too focused on my career anyway. I remembered feeling so loved when he said those things. Like someone finally wanted to protect me from the stress of having to be perfect all the time. But reading it now, I'm wondering if maybe I wasn't too perfect at work. Maybe I was just normal person perfect, and somehow I've convinced myself that normal person perfect isn't good enough anymore. Maybe the bar keeps getting higher and higher, and I keep getting more and more tired trying to reach it. Last night I did something I haven't done in forever. I made a list, but not a list of things to remember or ways to be better. I made a list of all the things I used to be good at. All the things people used to compliment me on. All the ways I used to feel capable and smart and worthy. It was a longer list than I expected, and it made me cry, which felt strange because I don't really cry anymore. I've gotten really good at pushing down feelings, at focusing on just getting through each day without messing up enough to end up outside. The strangest part was when I finished writing, I felt this tiny spark of something I hadn't felt in so long. Not happiness exactly, but maybe the memory of what happiness used to feel like. Like seeing the shadow of something you used to own. Final update. I did something today that surprised even me. I drove to my sister's house while he was at work. I hadn't planned it, wasn't even really thinking about it consciously, but I found myself parked in her driveway with no memory of deciding to go there. She took one look at me standing on her doorstep and just opened her arms. I fell apart completely. All those months of holding everything together, of convincing myself this was normal, of believing I deserved to sleep in cars when I disappointed him, just crumbled away. I told her everything. Her face went through so many expressions while I talked. Shock, anger, disbelief, and then this fierce protectiveness I'd forgotten she was capable of. She made me tea and wrapped me in her biggest blanket, and for the first time in months, I felt warm all the way through. The biggest shock came when she told me she'd been worried about me for over a year. That I'd changed, become jumpy and apologetic about everything. That she'd wondered if something was wrong but didn't know how to ask. Apparently, the last time we went to lunch, I apologized 17 times in 2 hours. For ordering first, for talking too much, for talking too little, for things that weren't even mistakes. She helped me see something I'd been blind to. The woman in my old work photo, the one who was organized and confident and capable, didn't disappear because she was flawed. She disappeared because someone convinced her that her normal human mistakes were catastrophic failures worthy of punishment. I'm writing this from her guest room. Yesterday, I would have been terrified about not being home. When he got back from work, would have been panic calling and apologizing and trying to explain. Today, I turned off my phone and took a nap in a real bed with real pillows and no fear of being locked out for breathing wrong. I don't know what happens next. The thought of going back to that house, to those garage punishments and car sleeping nights, makes my chest tight with panic. But the thought of not going back brings its own terror. What if he's right, and I really am just unusually forgetful and difficult? What if no one else would put up with my constant mistakes? But then I look at that work ID photo again, and I remember that woman who never forgot meetings, who people trusted with important projects, who felt proud of her accomplishments instead of constantly ashamed of her failures. And I think maybe, just maybe, she's still in here somewhere. My sister says I can stay here as long as I need to. She says she's proud of me for finally talking about it, for recognizing that something was wrong. She also said something that's been echoing in my head all day. The woman I grew up with would never have accepted being locked in a garage. What happened to her doesn't have to be permanent. I'm scared about what comes next, but for the first time in years, I'm more curious than terrified. Maybe that's a start. For anyone reading this who sees themselves in my story, my sister told me something else that I wish someone had told me 2 years ago. Normal relationships don't involve punishment. People who love you don't systematically tear down your confidence and then blame you for lacking confidence. You're not crazy for feeling like something's wrong, and you're not weak for ending up in this situation. I still don't know if I'm overreacting, but I'm starting to think that maybe, sometimes, overreacting is just reacting appropriately after months of underreacting. Maybe recognizing that sleeping in your car when it's below freezing because you bought the wrong coffee isn't normal isn't overreacting at all. Maybe it's just remembering who you used to be.